So turning to Biogen, looking
Yeah.
into your work a little bit now, you gave us a little bit of a snapshot of it a few moments ago. When we were talking on the phone a few days ago, you talked about how developing Biogen University, you have a branding problem. Can you explain what that branding problem is?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When we, when I was talking a couple of years ago to our CHRO, and he had this really grand vision that Biogen University, which at the time referred to our LMS, and actually, frankly, to our many LMS systems, was really supposed to represent the sum of all learning and experience and connection at Biogen. And it would be this living, breathing, virtual learning experience, right? Not just going to the LMS and getting your assignments and checking out that you did it. But in reality, people still think of Biogen University as the LMS, and we refer to our LMS as Biogen University. And so, I don't think that an employee at Biogen would say, if we ask what is Biogen University, they're going to point to the LMS and say, it's this system that I go to learn or to connect or to get resources. I don't think they're going to say it's the interaction I just had with my manager or this great learning or sharing that I had with some of my peers or colleagues. And I don't know, I think that might be okay. I think sometimes the university name for a learning organization calls up some corporate, like old-fashioned kind of corporate universities, and like a brick and mortar thing, and that's really not what we're striving for. So I think we have to rethink that at Biogen a little bit.
Have you started to play around with what do you call it now, I guess?
I think we just call it learning, really, and almost trying to make it not something that's so in the focus. Like our organization, I don't think should be in the focus. I think what should be in the focus is the results that our employees are getting. And if we can help them get better results through rich and robust learning experiences or connecting them to the right people at the right time, then I think that's the most important thing. But branding learning for us, I find to be a little less important these days.
That's interesting, because I think one of the things we've written about in the past over a few years about at CLO is that there is a need to think of yourself a bit like a marketer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would argue that there are elements of that are true, but this idea of branding learning in some ways could be a waste of time because it's really ultimately about what you're trying to drive, not necessarily about what people think of you.
That's what I'm thinking these days, and my thoughts on this evolve. And certainly you have to market some of your courses, right? If we're trying to drive, people to do X, Y, Z behavior, then you need to be able to market to them. And by marketing, really just understanding what those needs are and designing to that, as opposed to advertising.
Right.
So yes, marketing most definitely. Advertising, probably not in the same way. And almost to me, it's pulling the learning organization back a little bit and putting the focus really on the employees and the results.
Yeah, and so I want to pick up on, I think it was on Jane's question a little while ago about how you help scientists or people who are deep into their particular field and passionate about that. How do you get them to see that perhaps leadership or learning is something that they need to do? Do you have any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, I think that's right. It's really, and we were having a conversation earlier at the table too about how do you convince a PhD with 20 years of experience studying exactly what they're studying and really this expert in the field, how do you convince them that you have anything to teach them? Well, I mean, you may not have anything to teach them when it comes to their, what they're actually doing, but I think you can teach them probably a lot about how to effectively navigate the corporate environment, how to work more effectively in teams. For us, it's a lot about how do you facilitate a molecule through the pipeline, and what are those various handoffs, and what information gets lost, right? Or what degrades over time. So how do you maximize those connections, and how do you help speed like a go, no-go decision, for instance, on a molecule? There's a lot that leadership and management work can do there to facilitate those pieces of work, but it's probably not teaching a scientist how to do an assay or how to design an experiment. It's thinking a little bit more about helping them navigate the corporate environment and move their work along more quickly.